Kayla, I again appreciate you hopping on for this. Why don't you give us like a quick introduction on who you are and I guess like how long you and I have been kind of working together?
Quick introduction. Okay, so I'm Kayla G, and I'm in my 30s, 32, and I currently work at a desk job that's in the STEM field. Um, I live in Central Texas, and I have my entire life. Jordan and I started working together originally at another kind of third-party coaching service, and then we like kind of lost touch, went separate ways a little bit, and then I found you again about a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, there was about a year, just over a year gap between when we first started working together, which I think we worked together for what, like 6 months or so
I think
prior.
so. Yeah, I think it was about that much. That part's hazy. It was I mean, I don't know, the early 2020s, it's
Yeah,
not super clear for anybody at this point.
yeah, exactly.
But yes,
It's all been blurs day
a
since
little bit of a
pandemic.
blur. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we started working together when I was working at a different company. And then when I left, you and I kind of parted ways. And then just over a year later, actually it was about 14 months later, you saw my ads. So the
I did.
algo gods were in our favor, I
On
guess.
your side. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was one of those things. I had worked with you for a little while. Through that app I got assigned to some other coaches who were great. It just wasn't the same magic, I guess. It wasn't the same formula. And so I was like, I don't know how well I'm sticking with this. Am I spending money that is kind of going to waste by doing this third party where I'm not feeling like it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't feel like
Hmm.
what was originally there. So I was like, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop doing that. And yeah, within like 3 or 4 months, I saw one of your ads on Instagram and I was like, oh, I'll just do that. I'll just go see you again and this will be great.
Yeah. Yeah. That absolutely is a testament to just how how well you vibe with your coach is just as
Absolutely.
important as like the program and stuff because there's that rapport built where there's like communication to where maybe with your previous coaches you just didn't vibe well with them. Like you said, they're nice people and stuff, but everybody has their
Absolutely.
different
Yeah.
kind of vibe with other people, and then you might not have been felt as open or comfortable communicating with things with them about like the program and stuff like that. So there was like that kind of disconnect there.
For sure. And I will also say, like, it was hard. Like, I kind of associated the time on that app with like the time as you being my coach. So, like, jumping from next one to next one, it was like I had one and then they kind of left and then I had another one. And I was like, it just feels like this is a little bit of a cycle. I don't know that I feel like I have to start from scratch every time. And I don't know, like,
Yeah.
it gets tricky. So, again, when I saw you, I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll just vibe back there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not to shit on, not to completely shit on that previous company, but a lot of times when people are like coaches are in like those, I guess, digital big box
Absolutely.
systems or companies, they are just starting off. And so when
Hmm.
they do get that experience underneath them, and then they have all of that kind of other client base under their belt, they'll dip out and start their own business, like I did. And
Absolutely.
so, although they can't take their clientele with them, they have the experience of working with those said clients, and they have the
Yeah,
confidence to kind of do it on their own. So you do kind
absolutely.
of get in that churn cycle because you're on kind of like the base ground floor for
Hmm.
places, kind of like when you go to Walmart, like the cashiers and stuff like that. They have a high turnover rate because it's the entry level position.
Hmm.
And the previous job did have a low percentage of acceptance rate because they had so many applicants, but it was still like the people that they had were actually decent coaches. And so when they had the confidence, they would go out on their own. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's why you kind of get that churn.
And like
But
I said, absolutely no bad blood. Every coach I had was great. It was just like, this seems like a trend. And like, I don't know.
yeah, yeah, I have bad blood for other reasons, but yes, I definitely
Yes,
understand.
yes. That not,
Um,
I meant with the coaches. With the company, that's a different story. But with the coaches themselves.
Yeah. Client facing wise, I think they did a pretty good job, but it was just a lot of
Mhm.
what they did behind the scenes that I don't love.
Yeah,
Part
yeah.
of the reason why I left
Understandably.
when I did.
Understandably.
Yeah. Yeah. But that is not the point of this. I want to celebrate you and your successes. So,
Yes.
where were you in the beginning before you joined that platform where you just said, you know what, I kind of might want to explore what working with an online coach looks like?
Yeah, sure. So at that point, and would that put us in like 2022, maybe?
22 to 23. I worked there from
Okay.
April of 22 to April of 23. So, somewhere
Okay.
within that year.
Somewhere. I think it was about that time. I had tried some of like the viral, like at home workouts, like to varying degrees, varying amounts of accountability, since that really was just like me on my own being like, okay, like you're gonna do this workout and it's gonna be all right. And just trying to kind of maintain any level of fitness, since I felt like, I guess we'll go back a little bit further as like a young kid and like a teenager, young adult in my 20s. I felt like I had always kind of had like a casual strength where I felt like I never really like worked out to get really strong, but I was strong. And
Mhm.
I don't want to say I took that for granted, but like I did when I started to lose it. Like when I started to work more desk job stuff, or like I worked longer hours. So I didn't do like as much hiking or like as much just general like activity as I like to. And so we got to a couple years into the pandemic and I was like, I hate this. Like I
Mhm.
just I'm not feeling as strong. I'm not feeling as like my body is hurting a little bit more. I'm sitting a lot. So my body's hurting a lot. I'm hurting a bit more. My flexibility is different now. So like I'm not really achieving what I would like to via these home like YouTube based workouts that are not personalized or anything like that, which still great and very accessible, but I'm just not exactly getting what I want from that. Maybe having somebody as a contact to be like, hey, I'm struggling with this exercise. Can you help me? Or I don't like how to do these. Can you recommend a different exercise? Just having like that and a little bit of an accountability partner to be like, I don't necessarily want to be shamed, but like, oh, I don't want to disappoint you, like, or like a person, like, I don't want to disappoint someone after paying for a service to try to get me to be in a better place. It was just like a little piece of accountability where I was like, maybe this
Mhm.
is like the magic. Maybe this is what'll do it for me. So that's kind of what prompted me to seek out that company. I'd seen a lot of ads regarding it, especially since the pandemic seemed to kind of spur some of those
Mhm.
coaching programs that were based from home. So I was like, I'll take a chance. We'll see what happens. So that's kind of what prompted me to get started then.
Okay, nice. I like that. I mean, that's the whole glory of online coaching is you can do that everything essentially at your fingertips, and you have that accountability. You
Absolutely.
have that real life person, which is ever more
Absolutely.
important now with the advent of AI and everything like that. And
Yeah.
so it is nice to have that, especially you can do the workouts at the comfort of your own home and everything.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about, we can kind of talk about what we started doing in 23/24 or 22/23, but I don't really remember a whole lot about it. And if you don't, that's totally cool because we can talk more about like our journey for the last year. But if there's anything
I
you want to
don't
touch on, then
I don't remember anything super specific. I know we were basically focusing on just strength building. Like I said, I was having some general body pain that I hadn't felt when I was younger. And granted, I was younger, but I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I think we were just overall like, hey, let's get like a good solid uh, foundation back again. Like here's some just, core, pun intended, core exercises that you can to work with and see if we can build some of that strength back up. And I would say we were pretty successful at that. Nothing crazy, but like it was definitely on like the right track when we got there.
yeah, yeah, and that leads us to kind of what I want to talk about now with us
Hmm.
working together. So we had the year roughly 14 months off, found one of the ads, praise the algorithm, and
Yes.
then we started working again together. Where were
Hmm.
you, I guess, in that point where you said that you are ready to kind of work back together with us? You and I work back together, and then
Uh-huh.
where was that tipping point where you said, you know what, let's give this guy another try, so to speak?
So yeah, about that time, I'm trying to think. I started again up with you in 2024. I'm sorry that I'm having to like orient myself in terms of time. I had left that other company. I will say, like, I had suffered a loss at the end of 2023. My grandfather had passed away. We were very close. And so I, um, before that, I had gotten engaged. That was very excited, working on the immigration process for getting my fiance and I to get married. And so, really, just some good, some bad, but honestly, just in a place where I was like, I am so stressed. I'm so stressed, and my body hurts. And I didn't vibe with that other company with the working out. Maybe it's time to find something else. Maybe it's time to find like an in person somebody. Like maybe I think that's going to help in terms of stress, in terms of feeling better in general, in terms of flexibility, in terms of mental health. Like, I think that'll really help. I'm just intimidated. I don't know how to go about start looking for that. I don't even know. I'm not exactly sure what to do. I'm not exactly sure where to go. I had known that you had left and started your own thing. And I was like, I'm not sure, like, if you're even taking new people. I was like, and that little piece, I also have ADHD. That little piece where I'm like, I don't exactly know what to do. We're going to pause on it. And so, I mean, just one day I was like we've said a couple times now, I was scrolling through Instagram and your ad popped up and I was like, well, maybe it really is that easy. Maybe it really is just like restarting that conversation. Like, don't overcomplicate this.
Mhm.
Had its benefits, maybe that's, worth a try again. So
Mhm.
that really did restart that relationship, restart that communication between us. And yeah, it's been really great.
Good. Good. I agree as well. What were our goals when we first started working together a year ago? I guess restarted working together a year ago.
Spoiler, the goals changed. So about a year ago, it really was still the building strength, building strength. I did want to lose some weight. When we first started working together, that was another part where like I realized I was the heaviest point. Actually, I didn't say like the tipping point, I guess. I was at like probably the heaviest weight I'd ever been in. I definitely the heaviest weight I'd ever been in. And I was like, except I've been through a lot of things that were stressful. Weight happens, weight accumulates that way. Like biology works that way. I'm not going to be too hard on myself about it, but I'd like to make a change. I'd like to see a little bit of a difference. I'd like to future proof, as much as I can my body. Like I know losing weight when you're younger or building muscle when you're younger is a little bit easier than it is when you start to accumulate years. Not saying that
Mhm.
it can't be done, but like I know that like it's easier the earlier on. So like, well, maybe I can get a good start. And so that's kind of where that tipping point was. There's a lot of like catalyst bits, I guess, for that. In terms of our goals, though, it was a lot of just building strength. I knew that probably the weight loss would kind of come with that, with
Mhm.
the building the strength. That was also a goal because I was wanting to kind of shift. That's still a goal, but I've seen progress, but still a goal. But yeah, that was the main one, was the building the strength, losing weight, and then like increasing stability slash like flexibility.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and we're doing a pretty good job with that. And obviously, there's a big event that happens that I want to talk about here in a second.
There is.
But I'll bear the lead there a little bit. But throughout any of this program, either in our initial time together and then through this past year, how did you feel about the workouts? Did they feel appropriate? Did the program itself feel overwhelming at all? How did that all feel?
The workouts always felt really good. I will say, I was going to say, I will say that sounds like there was a bad part. There wasn't. Definitely felt appropriate. And if there was ever like a change that I was like, oh, I don't love this, could we switch it to this? Like it was always a very easy switch out. But even then, you and I had a discussion ahead of time where it was like, hey, what exercises do you not like? I'll try not to include those. Or with our like bi-monthly check-ins, it was like, hey, like we're thinking about boosting this up. How do you feel about that? Anything I want to include? It was always very much a conversation, excuse me. And it never felt like it was like blindsided, like, okay, well, today you're going to do 100 deadlifts and like go. And it very much felt appropriate and not like stagnant. Like we definitely kept like pushing. And I say it really was like, hey, do you feel comfortable? You saying, hey, do you feel comfortable progressing? And me being like, yeah, I really do. Like these have been feeling good. Let's go ahead and kick it up. So
Yeah,
very appropriate.
no, absolutely, and I'm glad you said that. But also, you kept saying we, and it's because you are an active participant in the program design,
Absolutely.
right? And so when we do the biweekly check-in calls, it's how are things going? What are your thoughts on doing X, Y, and Z? And then a lot of times you're like, cool, let's experiment, see how it goes. And
Yeah.
some are hits, some are misses, and that's where like we go with the flow. Rather than what I see a lot of coaches is weeks 1 through 4 are the hypertrophy phase, 5 through 8 are the strength phase, and then we're gonna go into a conditioning. And it's like they have everything segmented where they could just essentially print it all off in a book and then give it to somebody rather than customizing it and tailoring it on a kind of day to day basis just by going with the flow. But really, we would go through 2 to 4 to 6 weeks is kind of how our phases would work.
Absolutely. And I would say, I mean, I know that this wasn't the question, but like honestly, like the collaborativeness and the customization is like such a huge selling point of this program and of you as a coach, like for me, because they're, especially now, I know that I deal with like issues of hypermobility where I have some joints that are hypermobile. So it's like, hey, I
Mhm.
tried this and it felt weird. And we can talk about it and be like, hey, maybe we don't do this, we do this instead. And that'll still build these muscles, but it won't put as much, strain on this. It really is, it feels like constantly like a conversation and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to our next point. Roughly 6 months ago, I think is what it was. We had a
Yeah.
somewhat of an unfortunate event. Did you want to talk about that?
Sure. So, yes, it was at the beginning of November. I have my little notes here to make sure that I have the timeline correct.
Oh, that's
So, the
over eight
beginning
months
of
ago.
November last year, I had gone and done something like I went to a dinner, came back and was like, oh, I've been meaning to do this chore. I've been meaning to do this chore of fixing some drapes. Like one of the little bits that holds it to the rod had fallen. And I was like, I've been meaning to do this all weekend. This is so silly that I haven't done it. I'm going to do it. And so I get up on my footstool and I'm like, oh, I'm just like trying to fix this. And I start to lose my balance a little bit. And I was like, like I'm losing my balance. I'm trying to regain it. I can't. I'm just going to jump off. Like I'm what, like 3 feet from the floor. Like this is fun. I'm just going to jump off. It's okay. And I jump off and I land on the floor. And I guess I landed funky because my knee, I had a lot of like strange pain in my knee. Like when you hit like your elbow really hard and it like kind of rings and feels kind of odd.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh no, that was bad. But I've never broken a bone. I've never hurt myself, never torn anything. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm just going to lay here for a second and I'll see how it goes. When I got up, my knee started to turn in when I would walk, and I was like, "Oh, I've done it. I've missed the symptoms." So,
Good one.
I was like, "Well, Sunday night, I really can't do anything. I can't really go anywhere." I kind of told my family, like, "Oh, like I was messing around, and I found out." But so next morning I was like, "All right, well, how is this?" And it was just as bad. So I was like, "Well, I better go get it checked out." This is, the big reveal. I ended up completely tearing my ACL, probably completely tearing my MCL. And I actually looked the other day, I had like a very small fracture within like the kneecap heel itself. So all of that, I got it checked out, I think like 2 days after, and they were sure I hadn't torn it. They were like, oh my gosh, no, like we'll do an MRI, but like you probably didn't tear it. It's not inflamed enough for you to have torn it. Did the MRI, absolutely torn, MCL torn. So they were like, we're going to put you into a prehab kind of to see if we can get it strong enough to the point where maybe you don't need surgery to fix it. Like a lot of
Hmm.
people don't necessarily need ACLs to function in daily life. Like they do absolutely fine. Spoiler alert, I don't do a lot of like hardcore sports like rugby or soccer or basketball where I have a lot of rotation in my knee. So they were like, maybe this is enough. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll see. Plenty of that, plenty of PT for that. Great PT at the time as well. And went back after about a month and a half of prehab. She was really happy with where my knee was. Doctor was like, you still got like some weird looseness in it. I think you're a good candidate for surgery. I don't do that surgery. You have to go to a new doctor. And I was like, okay. So I switched doctors. He was like, yep, let's go ahead and do it. And I had a surgery for the beginning of February of this year. Did that surgery. They took a graft from my quadricep and everything went great. They were super pleased with it. I was recovering at my parents' house because I live on the third floor. Another reason I've built strength back.
Yeah.
But about 2 weeks after I had had the surgery, I went in for a post-op check. They did an x-ray and one of the pieces of metal that secures the graft had slipped and they were not confident in the tension of the graft anymore and they decided to do another surgery, which I had at the end of February, and they were like, no, this is like 100% bomb proof, like you're good, don't even worry about it anymore. So I could finally start truly like the PT that followed the surgery was after that. So we're about 4 months out from that second surgery, and yeah, that was the big event that kind of changed everything, or not
Yeah.
changed it and not changed it, I guess. But yeah, that's what happened there.
Yeah, it might not have necessarily changed our overarching goals, but it added goals to it. And I know you were doing a really good job with like the PT and like you said, kind of like the pre/slash rehab before the
Hmm.
surgery and everything like that. But I also know that you and I were also working with keeping the nutrition dialed in, well being a little bit more
Absolutely,
relaxed, trying to incorporate some upper body stuff while sitting in a chair, just so that way we don't kind of lose that momentum. And
absolutely.
your doctors slash PTs seem to have favorable results, or they seem to like how things are going as far as like your recovery and everything like that. So,
They
do you want to talk a
absolutely
little bit
did,
about
yeah.
that?
Yeah, for sure. So that was a huge piece of it. I guess I just spoke about like the medical pieces of it. But yeah, I know telling you, I was like, hey, womp womp, I messed up. I was a silly goose and hurt myself accidentally. And you were like, all right, well, let's pivot. You're not going to be putting weight on your knee because we're not going to mess with that right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we ended up again with that customization, a communication bit of it, really just like coming up kind of with a plan of like, hey, what are you able to do? What is your PT kind of doing with you? Like, let's try to like form a good plan on how to keep up the strength for like workout pieces. But then also, we had already kind of locked in a nutrition, I was going to say system, but like a nutrition
Routine.
plan. There we go, a routine where we included a lot of protein. And that ended up being really important too, because I mean, I'm rebuilding tendon, muscle, like bone, even. So it's just, that was a really important piece of it. I know in general, like they were, like I said, they were very pleased with me before I had the surgery. They were kind of concerned that I had one surgery and then had to have another surgery, since that's, you worry about the joint itself kind of losing muscle even more because, you're depending on your other leg so much. And it was in a brace for quite some time. So there was concern there that like, oh, it might be a harder recovery because I had to wait so long in terms of the two surgeries. You and I really stuck with it. We had like a reduced exercise kind of schedule, but still like tried to fit in things that really worked. Even if it was just like, hey, like try to do some walking, like when you can, like on certain days, like we can keep
Mhm.
up with that. Like, let's find things that do work for you that aren't scary or, like anything like that, like that do still fit into your recovery. Let's try to focus on what we can do versus what we can't do. And that was really, really, really beneficial. I had a like strength test in April, and then I had a strength test in May, about a month apart. And I had doubled the amount I was able to pull or push, regardless. There were two different measurements, but pull or
Mhm.
push in that time. And they were really impressed. My PT was really impressed with that fact because it had happened so quickly. I will say, like, flexibility, that was like the first thing that out of like surgery came up, is that they were trying to get me from being like completely straight to like as bent as I could. And that like
Mhm.
felt like it took forever. But even so, like we were talking through that, talking through ways to like get that changed. And that ended up progressing really well, really quickly, so that was really beneficial. And then when I went for, I think it was my 3 month post-op, uh, my doctor, it was funny. My doctor actually chastised me because he was like, you lost weight. We don't normally like that. And I was like, oh, write this down in history. I've never heard a doctor say that. So this
Right.
was great. But he was like, you lost a little bit weight. We don't normally like that because it causes some of the muscle to die. Like if you're trying to rebuild muscle, you're trying to get back into things. If you're losing weight, sometimes muscle can go. Typically it does. And so, he took the measurements he needed to see the kind of build I had, like how much muscle I had built based on measurement, and then looked at like the PT results that I had just talked about, building the strength back. And he was like, I don't know how you did that. You did lose weight, but like you've maintained the muscle, like you're building muscle actually. So you've done what nobody else can do. I don't know how you did that, but good job. And I was like, well, I'm working with my personal trainer and I have a PT right now. So that was really exciting. And honestly, I didn't get into this bit of it when I was first told that like I had the tear and I had the MCL. Like I said, I'd never done anything like that before, or never had done that where it'd been diagnosed like, hey, you messed up. And I was really discouraged. I was really discouraged that like I was going to have to deal with this for a long time. I was discouraged because it was going to pause you and I working together and pause any of our goals potentially. And I was just really bummed. I was like, I had gotten back on the wagon, was feeling really good about stuff, and suddenly, like, it came to a screeching halt, it felt like, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, this feels so silly. Like, I can't believe I did this. I wasn't skiing. I wasn't doing anything fun. I was fixing
Mhm.
a curtain, and this happened suddenly, and it was really discouraging. I mean, you very much were encouraging about it. My PT staff, the doctor, all very encouraging about it. I ended up having to kind of press and be like, no, I'd like to have the surgery. And they were like, well, you really don't have any like sports that you do. And I was like, well, I don't really want to limit myself in the future to be like,
Yeah.
I didn't ski when I was in my 30s, but like now I'm 40 and I want to ski. Like I want to future proof myself. I want to like take care of myself in the future. Like I don't want to put limits at that point. And that's kind of with the strength building as well. It's like I don't want to have limits. Like I mean, we should have limits. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
but yeah, I wanted to make it as easy as possible. I wanted to take care of myself. And so again, like hearing that, wow, like I had built that strength up and it happened relatively quickly in that time of a month, and that everything was so good, that they were so pleased with how everything looked, especially after the second setback of the second surgery. Like it
Yeah.
was really exciting. It was really, really exciting to hear that, like, no, everything looks really great. You're doing a good job. Now I'm in PT and I'm jumping, which is wild. I am, and we're practicing jumping, and I forgot how tiring it can be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really great,
Nice.
surprisingly.
Yeah, yeah, and it hasn't been obviously the easiest journey in the world, right? There's a
No,
couple things I want to touch on there. You
yeah,
mentioned that the doctor singing you praises for losing weight and maintaining slash building muscle. I think he's over embellishing. You can easily do that, especially since you were in a state of being deconditioned, since you had to take so much time off of your legs. So it's easy to kind of rebuild that muscle. And rebuilding lost muscle is a lot easier than building new muscle. And so we had a lot of things going in our favor to where we weren't sedentary. We
right.
were keeping a good eye on calories and protein,
Hmm.
and we were, through a combination of what you and I were doing and PT, working on building that muscle. And so
Absolutely.
we were doing our best to stack the deck in our favor to make that happen. So it wasn't like it was just some miraculous thing, but a lot of
Yes.
people, especially right now with like the advent of GLP-1s, they'll just lose weight while being sedentary on
Hmm.
a heavily calorie restricted diet, where then you'll lose a lot of muscle. And that's, I
Hmm.
think, what your doctor was referring to.
I see. Yeah, and like that, he said that, and I was like, okay. I mean, like I knew that that wasn't necessarily the case. Like there's a difficult
Yeah.
maybe like to do that, but like, or you need to be very intentional when you
Hmm.
do like losing weight while maintaining or building muscle, but it's possible. I will also add to like the stuff that was going for us. I did have my PT and my prehab and my post op, different PTs, definitely say that the condition I was in before I got injured, the amount of strength that I did have was a huge benefit,
Hmm.
because I was able to do a lot of things before I even had the surgery. And they were like, you are like exactly where we would want somebody to be before they had surgery. Like you're very
Good.
strong. Like you have a lot going for you right now. You were in a really good spot. And it didn't even take long to get me exactly where they wanted, because you and I had been working together for a few months at that point, and it was like, no, like I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. I just accidentally hurt myself, and so like I
Hmm.
have to deal with this now. So they really did sing praises about that, where it was the amount of muscle that I already had was like a huge boon.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it wasn't like you were running marathons or playing a lot of contact sports. It was just like you lived a moderately active lifestyle. Living on the third floor didn't hurt. And
Yeah.
we had developed like a nice average base level of strength and
Hmm.
activity. So that way you were able to rebound much quicker than somebody
Absolutely.
who is sedentary. And you work a sedentary job most of the time. So it's like
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
lot, I don't say harder, but it's an increased barrier versus somebody who works an active job, right? Because there's
Absolutely.
all your whole shift or you aren't actively getting movement in. And so there's just, like you said, you have to be more intentional with it. But again, we weren't doing anything crazy prior,
For
during,
sure.
or after any of that.
For sure. Yeah, it really was just intentional and honestly like consistency, which was one of the issues I'd had when I was trying to do things by myself before. It's just like I could not stay consistent. I would be like,
Hmm.
yes, I'm going to work out and work out 4 times a week, one week, and then the next week, maybe not work out at all. So it's like, it really is about the consistency in the habit building, which has been also such a huge portion of working together. It's been so great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something to it when you don't have to quote unquote answer to anybody else. When you know that if I miss a workout, nobody is going to really know. But having
Hmm.
what I call like that second mind to the madness, to where if I don't work out, he's going to see it. So I might as well just get the damn thing done. So,
Yeah. And
because
honestly,
doing,
oh, go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
just going to say, so doing something out of spite helps build that habit. Although there's probably better motivators that at least, at the very least, helps.
Sometimes it's spite. Sometimes it's spite. It's not spite with you, but sometimes it is spite.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a good motivator. But yeah, it really does add something to it where it's like, no, like even if it was like, okay, like I mean, recently I got a terrible sunburn, so like I hadn't done my workouts, but it's still like kind of lingering where I was like, oh, I would have liked to done my workouts, but like I appreciate having that kind of habit mentality built in now, where it's like,
Hmm.
oh, that's kind of a part of my routine and I'm not able to do it right now. And it's probably good because I need to like heal things, but like, ugh, I wish I could. And so
Mhm.
it's really cool to have that kind of built back in.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something, and I think you and I talked about this, to where you have a stressful day at work and then you catch yourself looking forward to your workouts. That's like
Absolutely.
that's like putting the game on easy mode, right? Because it's pretty much game over for everybody else because you not only are seeing the workouts as a stress relief versus a stressor, but you now have something healthy. You have a healthy habit to relieve your stress rather than I had a really stressful day. I'm going to run to the Taco Bell and eat my feelings away, which a lot of people do that. And
Yeah.
myself, I had struggled with that in the past. Hell,
Yeah.
I'm in grad school, I would just find excuses of like, well, today's Thursday. I always go to Taco Bell on
Yeah.
Thursday, even though
It's
it's like
Taco
there's
Thursday.
literally,
That's a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so when you have a nice healthy outlet for your stress, and then you see like exercise specifically as a stress relief, that again is it's pretty much game over for everybody because that is
Absolutely.
when all the again the deck is stacked in your favor.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like I don't want to be like rah rah like exercise. Exercise is great. Like I am definitely I was not like necessarily an athletic person when I was younger. I was in marching band. You know, I did dance. Like I had some stuff, but I really do think that like finding a way for you to have some sort of movement in your life like is super beneficial. I mean, especially obviously like this is kind of the conversation we're having, but
Mhm.
like for us especially like building strength, building flexibility, like increasing the stability, like those are all as I've gotten older, really important facets, things I took for granted when I was younger. And I'm like, that makes me feel better. That makes my mental health better. And, you know, it reduces the stress. There's so many points of it that are so beneficial. Um, that yeah, I'm really happy that it's a habit that we're building back.
Yeah, yeah, and again, not to beat a dead horse, but we're not doing anything crazy,
No.
nothing outlandish. I think a good base level for anybody who wants to just get started would be like give yourself, I think you and I did this at one point. Give yourself a certain number of minutes of exercise that you want to do each day and do whatever you want within that
Mm-hmm.
time to accomplish that. And so like let's say I
Mm-hmm.
would say start off with 15 minutes a day or do some form of exercise. Some days it can be a 15-minute walk, some days it's 15
Mm-hmm.
minutes of Beat Saber, some days it's 3 5-minute stretching sessions throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you don't have to do it all at once. You can do whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want, dealer's choice. And it's based on kind
Absolutely.
of how you're feeling that day. So that way, at the end of the day, you can check the box saying, yes, I did my 15 minutes at some point throughout the day. And
Yep, and
then build
that's
from
one
there.
of our habits is that 20
Yep.
minute like movement habit. And like some days it's like I went on a whirlwind and cleaned the house. Like
Hmm.
that was my 20 minutes. I ran around like crazy person and cleaned the house. Sometimes it's like, hey, like I was feeling a lot of tension, like you said, like stretching or like a walk, or it's like it's a fun excuse to like try new stuff. It's like well, there's like a park down the road. Like I've never been to that one. Let me just go and take a walk. Like real low threshold. I would say blanket 20-minute, 15-minute movement goal is just like it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to tell anybody else about it. Like it's just something to kind of like get you out of the spot you were in, like just to kind of keep things moving. And it's
Hmm.
nice.
Yep. I like to think of them as your dailies IRL, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta log in and get my dailies done. Um,
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so right now, actually, just like relatively recently, we are kind of on, again, royal we are kind of on this transition from like PT to like post PT, correct?
Yes, we absolutely are. I'm currently going once a week. Pretty soon, I believe I'll transition to once a month for PT.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, I know we're not jumping back onto the rugby field like you said, but turf, I think they
Yeah.
call it pitch, the rugby pitch.
Yeah, that's right.
But there is normally this kind of gray area. And this might be, again, kind of a peek into the future, what we're planning on doing. But there's
Oh.
normally this gray area between like PTNs and being 100%. And
Mm.
so I think, I don't know if we actually talked about this, but we'll talk about this next week during our call. We're going to want to implement more of those like daily movements. Like you said, you're doing stuff with jumping with your PT. May or may not implement that, but we are going to implement more single leg type strength training, like step ups, like we have been doing lunges, going
Yep.
into a more unstable surface, whether it is just like the single leg stuff through the lunge or the step up. Do we want to implement some other instability, like maybe doing a lunge on a pillow, like a static stance
Mm-hmm.
squats on a pillow instead of like a Bosu
Mm-hmm.
ball or something like that at home? So that way, which is all stuff that you do at PT. So that way we
Mm-hmm.
can increase that stability, mobility, and strength and flexibility while staying in a more controlled, safe setting. So that way you're not jumping off ladders again.
Yes.
but you'll be
My
more
whole
equipped
family
for
teases
when
me
you
about
do.
it. Yes. My whole family's like, you're not to be trusted around a footstool. But
Yeah, exactly.
it's a fun story at the very least. I'm like, yeah, this is what happened. Stuff
Yeah.
happens. Like,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
then, I mean,
recoverable.
yeah. And at the end of the day, there was definitely a lot worse injuries that could have been done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice. Well, during that time, this is kind of like our final wrap up point.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole journey, throughout the year we've been together consistently, half of that has been injury recovery, really. And with our initial goal kind of be like strength gaining and weight loss, a lot
Hmm.
of times people will use that injury as an excuse to just lay on the couch, eat their feelings away, and then just go completely in like pretty much a vegetative state, like house rot. We did not
Hmm.
do that.
We did not.
And we've been pretty consistent with the progress that we've been making. Did you want to kind of talk about how the weight loss progress has been going?
I will. Weight loss progress. Okay, well, hold on. I will step back for a second. There were definitely days after I got hurt that there were some days that there was a little bit of wallow, where I was like,
Well,
okay, this
yeah,
is
I'm
gonna be
not
bad.
saying
I mean, I
everything was
spoke to it
sunshine and
before.
rainbows.
No, for sure. Where I was just like, ooh, this is gonna be so bad and hard and meh. But again, that's a bad day, not a bad month. We were able to
Mhm.
work through it for sure. In terms of the weight loss, I think overall, we spoke about it just recently. Since I first started seeing you, I've lost about 35 pounds with a little bit more to go, I believe. But I am definitely happy with that big chunk down. I will say, like, in the past, probably month or two, there was a little bit of plateauing just because of the recovery process, the building muscle
Yeah.
process. Like, there's a little bit of like stagnancy, but nothing that was like, oh, I gained anything back. I got anything, it was just like, okay, we're taking a little bit of a pause, and like, we've now started to continue back down, which is really really delightful for me. The loss itself is just, I will like say that, you hear, I'm a child of the 90s. You hear a lot of like the diets, the fad diets, this is what's
Yeah.
going to get you to work quick. Fat's terrible, carbs are terrible. You hear all of the things. I actually worked with a nutritionist to kind of get a few years ago in like 2020, worked with a nutritionist to kind of get some acid reflux things under control. She ended up still really like doubling down, like, oh, well, at least you've lost weight, and then like super toxic. So like it was one of those things that I was like, I don't even know a good way to go about this. It's going to be hard. I'm a woman, like I'm dealing with hormones. There's so many weird like factors that I'm going to have to
Mhm.
deal with. And granted, it did take about a year to get that 35 down, but I definitely dealt with an injury, and I have never had such a big loss, like consistency. Like, I'm sorry, I've never been so consistent in terms of weight loss, where it was like, yes, things are still moving in the right direction. Maybe we pause for a second, but things are still moving in the right direction. And that was really, really, really exciting. And honestly, everything we've done to tweak diet, to tweak what I'm eating, has not been like deal breakers by any means. And I don't want to be like, it's super easy. It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Like,
Yeah.
there are definitely days where it's like, I mean, you were like, I don't want to run off to Taco Bell and just like eat my feelings. Like, that doesn't mean Taco Bell's off the table, right? Like, you
Mhm.
just have to balance it with other things. And just getting back into, I hesitate to say being mindful, because I'm not talking about mindful eating necessarily, but just, I guess, intentional is very good. Maybe not like harking on like calories and like, oh my gosh, but just like getting those ranges kind of back to where they could be, like where
Mhm.
it feels a little more comfortable, was a lot easier than I thought it would be. It's hard for me to not say that. I mean, like, it really was. It was like, I thought it was going to be something that I was going to have to like super restrict or super watch. And it really has been just like, hey, we're going to try to keep things in between this and this. Try to prioritize protein where you can. Here's your goal. Like,
Mhm.
some days are going to be better than others. Go, let's see. And so it really was super helpful. And I would say, like, having that 35-pound situation, that 35-pound situation, that 35-pound achievement is really helpful as well, because it's like, okay, well, like, that's what happened. I've achieved that much. I've achieved that loss, and you know, it's possible. Like, I can
Mhm.
lose a little bit more, or like, and I'm not saying like, oh, like, that's part of the plan is to lose a little bit more, but like, it helps that momentum keep going. Where it's like, okay, like, I thought that was going to be really hard, and it took effort and it took intention, but it wasn't awful. It wasn't unattainable by any means, because it was attained.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was pulling up your chart here. We have been kind of on a bit of a maintenance since
Hmm.
um, beginning of May. We've kind of been,
Yeah.
I think we're down like a pound a month, kind of.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that is we're hitting the strength training with like PT and everything a little bit harder. So we're kind of re-inflating, rebuilding that muscle loss, like what your doctor was saying. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
this is a situation, I mean, this whole injury journey is a
Hmm.
situation where we could just be focusing on maintaining our weight because that is much better than rebounding. And
Hmm.
it's situations like that where we kind of need to assess our priorities. What's our priority? And I know just recently we adjusted calories and maybe a protein a little bit. We tend to do one at a time, but
Yeah.
I'm maybe trying to taper down a little bit more. But when we were getting back into becoming closer to fully cleared for PT, we're focusing on building that muscle, building that strength, and that should be the priority. So bump up
Yeah,
that protein a little bit and
for
maintain that
sure.
weight as we are regaining some of that muscle. And so although it hasn't been a straight line downward, it has been a pretty good progression. But it has been ups and downs. But we've long since cleared that. And as you'll see that it's kind of goes by squiggles. So obviously it's not that linear line like we talked about. But seeing good progress, still continuing more. What, if for some like final remarks, what would you
Yeah.
say to somebody who is traveling on a similar journey to where maybe they've tried a lot of things in the past, don't really know where to turn, heard about online coaching, but are kind of hesitant to maybe take that plunge? What would you say to them on just online coaching in general, slash
Online
working
coaching
with
in
me?
general, that's a different question. No. Uh, Online coaching in general and working with you, I would say that like it's extremely accessible. I'm going to say like you still have to have the desire to want to make a change. Like there's no like magic, like I'm going to start doing this and it's just going to like fall into place even if I don't want it to. Like I think you need to kind of there's some like self-reflection maybe where it's like, oh yes, like I'm ready to make a change. I want to make a change. But it seems like if somebody is searching that out, they do want to make that change. And I would
Mhm.
say that like with online training with working with you, like it's worth taking a risk. It's worth just even not a risk, but it's worth just trying. There's no drawback to just trying. Like if you're able to have the time, have a little bit of the money, like you're able to work through it. You're able to invest in like your health in terms of your mental health, your physical health. It's worth it for sure, especially since like using a more traditional gym or even working from home, that threshold is going to be higher. Working together is such an important piece of that for me is that resistance, that threshold's lower where it's like, yes, like I said, this is just a part of our habit. Like this is just a part of my routine every day, every week. This is just what I do. And I don't want to say that it's effortless. Oh my gosh, like, it just falls into place, but like it really is probably as effortless as it could be in terms of
Mhm.
building strength, working out, and improving your health.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Definitely. Obviously, I appreciate the kind words. But I
Oh, of
do
course.
try to make the program as low barrier to entry, but also as seamless as possible.
Truly.
And
Yeah.
that sometimes involves like baby steps in the beginning. And I always
Yeah.
try to start off the workout or start off like our initial time working together as almost too easy. Like I want the workouts to
Hmm.
feel like you could do a little bit more. I want the nutrition to feel like it's not overly daunting. And
Hmm.
I think we kind of experienced that in the beginning where we're like, okay, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. And then we
Absolutely.
build and progress from there. So kind of like what
Absolutely.
you were saying, where it doesn't feel like I'm just sitting on the couch losing weight, but it
Right.
is low barrier to entry compared to what you see on like Instagram and stuff.
Exactly. Where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like a lot of people, and maybe they don't, but from what I think, from what I see, is that like a lot of people see people working on Instagram, and like to be trite, I guess. It's like nobody knows anybody else's journey, but it's very true. Like you see somebody else working out on Instagram, like you don't know what they've had to do to get to the place that they're at. And so you see that and you're just like, oh my gosh, like they're jumping around, they're lifting 150 pounds. Like, want to be strong, if I want to be healthy, if I want to improve things, I'm going to have to do that. And that's just not true. Like it truly is such a big thing that there was like the baby steps where it's like really just building habits, like, and being consistent where it's like, hey, how does this feel? And like finding where to start and then just building from there. And you are so great about like meeting people where they're at and helping them to find goals that really align with are find habits and goals that really align with their own goals, either with just fitness or like with health stuff or with house stuff as well. Like I know we have a housekeeping habit where it's like, yeah, my house, like if I do something having to do with, cleaning the house, like it's checked off. And overall that makes me happier. And it makes that like resistance for working out lower because like the house is clean. What am I going to do aside from working out? Work out. It really does. It feels so comprehensive. The work that you do, the work we do together, like it's just really great that it feels like I can talk to you and be like, hey, I'm really dealing with this right now. And I kind of feel overwhelmed. I feel like I have too much on my plate. How can we adjust that? And it feels like very compassionate. Like you're a very compassionate person. I'm not like, it feels very compassionate. I know you're very compassionate, but it's just, it feels like there's less of like a like, oh, I have to like impress somebody, like going back to that Instagram where it's like, oh, if I go see a trainer, like I'm gonna have to be impressive or I'm gonna have to like
Mhm.
do this, I'm gonna have to do that. I'm not like, and it's way better than that. It's way better than that where it's just like a lot more helpful.
Well, good, good. I appreciate all of that, and I think that's a good place to end. And
Yeah.
again, just want to double down. You've been kicking ass, taking names. Appreciate you
Thank
doing
you.
this, and I know that now that we're working our way through this injury, that it's just going to be essentially, infinity and beyond from here. So definitely
Absolutely. Really
keep up the
excited about
great.
it.
Yeah, me too, me too. Well, awesome. Again, thanks for hopping on, and I guess until next time.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much.